Welcome to Midnight Confessions. A farewell you'll never forget. So those were tonight's Midnight Confessions. Each one is darker than the last. Like whispers crawling out of a locked room deep in your subconscious. If you're still here, if your lights are still on, if your heart is still thudding in your chest, then congratulations, you made it to the end. Not everyone does. These chilling tales were sent in by brave souls just like you. Ordinary people who saw something they were never meant to see, heard footsteps when no one was home, or woke up with bruises from fingers that weren't theirs. Which story twisted your gut the most? The third one? Yeah, same here. There's something about shadows. That watch back keeps me checking over my shoulder. Hit that subscribe button before something else hits you first. Until next time, sleep tight, if you still can. Let's start the story. When I was about 11 or 12, I was in a really dark place. I struggled with crippling depression and anxiety, and school felt like a constant battle. I felt isolated, like no one understood me. My home life was far from stable, and it eventually got to the point where I had to stay with my grandparents for a while. I had to leave, because home just wasn't safe anymore. At my grandparents' place, things seemed better at first. I tried to make the most of it, but honestly, I just shut myself in my room. I spent most of my days either sleeping or zoning out in front of the TV. The area around their house wasn't exactly isolated, but it wasn't a typical neighborhood either. The houses were spaced apart, separated by small patches of woods and a few trees. You couldn't see the next house over, but you could walk to it if you wanted. It was a quiet, almost eerie area. Not much wildlife around, at least not anything that could explain what happened next. One day, my grandparents went out for errands, leaving me alone in the house. I did what I always did, lay in bed, trying to lose myself in the emptiness. That's when I heard it. At first, it sounded like a distant cry, but then it hit me, a scream. Not the kind of scream you'd expect. This wasn't a child's scream or someone in distress. It was a deep, blood-curdling scream, full of terror and rage. A man's scream. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. But instead of doing the smart thing and staying put, I got out of bed. I was 11, and I didn't know any better. I started walking around the house, thinking maybe it was just the wind or some animal, but I could tell this was different. This scream wasn't coming from outside. It was close. Too close. I checked every door and window, all of them locked tight. Every room I went into was empty, just as it should be. But the scream didn't stop. It didn't get closer or fade away, it stayed constant, like it was coming from the walls themselves. I went back to the windows, peering out into the still woods, but there was nothing. No one. Just trees. But that scream, it wouldn't stop. I started pacing, doing laps around the house, checking and rechecking every window, looking for something, anything that would explain it. But the scream just kept going, echoing through the air, filling my ears with terror, and I couldn't escape it. It felt like the house itself was closing in on me. I don't know how long I wandered, but it felt like an eternity, until finally, it stopped. Just like that. But I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever it was still out there, waiting. Then, like a punch to the gut, it hit me. My phone. It was on. Still in my room, yes, but it was on. So, I went back upstairs, hoping I could make sense of it. I grabbed my phone, convinced it had to be the source of the sound, but when I checked, there was nothing. No apps open, nothing playing, just a blank screen. I thought maybe a hard reset would do the trick, so I force shut it off. Spoiler alert, it didn't. At this point, I was losing it. Alone, terrified, and completely powerless. My mind was racing, still convinced it had to be my phone, so I shoved it under my pillows, hoping to bury whatever it was causing this insanity. But the scream? It kept going. Here's the part that still gets me. I was crying, desperate. The screaming was tearing through my head, and I couldn't make it stop. I had no idea what was causing it, no idea where it was coming from, but I couldn't take it anymore. Maybe I was a mix of frustration and paranoia, but in my panic, I did something I still don't understand. I slapped myself. Hard. A couple times. Over and over, just trying to shake the feeling, to wake up from whatever nightmare this was. And then, silence. The scream stopped. The quiet hit me like a freight train. 5 minutes? Maybe more? I have no idea, but it felt like hours. For the first time, I was left alone with my own thoughts, and I was almost afraid to breathe, afraid that if I made a sound, it would start again. Here's the kicker. It never happened again. Not once. Not in the months after. Not in the years since. It's been 6 years, and I haven't heard that scream even once. But every time I tell someone about it, they don't know what to say. Hell, I don't know what to say either. But I know one thing for sure, it still freaks me out This might not be the scariest story you've heard, but I promise you it's true. And it still messes with my mind every time I think about it. I had to share it though. Thanks for listening. Hey there, I just wanted to start by saying I really enjoy your videos. I've been watching for a while now, and hearing everyone else share their own stories of the supernatural has finally given me the courage to tell mine. For a long time, I've struggled to believe what I've seen and experienced. A lot of what I'm about to share has been buried deep, brushed aside, or explained away because honestly, I've been terrified of what it might mean, what it might say about the world I thought I knew. But I can't keep it in anymore. I need to get this off my chest, even if it's a bit long. I think I should start with the most recent and the most vivid encounter I've had over the last couple of years. The one that broke through the walls I've built to deny it all. Let's start another story. A while back, my fiancée and I ended our relationship. It was a huge fallout, the kind that shakes you to your core. It was the hardest, most life-altering decision I've ever made. I won't go into the details though, because I'm afraid someone might recognize me. Let's just say, I was neglected for a long time. I'm loyal to a fault, to a point where it harms me. I spent months drowning in depression, locked in a fog of misery. I couldn't escape the nightmares, the delusions. They became a constant, unrelenting part of my life. That's why, to this day, I'm skeptical about all of this. When I was younger, strange, unexplainable things would happen around me, and I'd always find a reason for it. But that wasn't enough anymore. The darkness I felt inside me made it impossible to ignore what was going on. During this time, I found solace in an online friend. We'd talk for hours, play games together, anything to keep my mind from spiraling. One day, out of the blue, he told me something that made my blood run cold. He said his house was haunted, that strange things had been happening for years. It all started when he was a kid. He made the mistake of messing around with a Ouija board, but he didn't close the session properly. He said something attached itself to him, and it's been tormenting him ever since. The marks. The scratches. Whatever it was, it made its presence known. He couldn't get rid of it, no matter what he did. His mental health took a nosedive, and there was a point where he almost ended it all because of what he was going through. I'm leaving out a lot of the details because, well, it's not my place to tell his story. But hearing this, knowing what he was enduring, it hit me harder than I expected. Whatever it was, it never stopped haunting him. And even now, he still deals with it. It's as if whatever attached itself to him is relentless, always lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. Part of the reason he'd spend hours just talking to me was to keep his mind off the freaky stuff happening in his dark room. I'd never fully grasped what he was dealing with until he started opening up. Usually, when someone starts talking about their ghostly experiences, I get a little more comfortable sharing mine. But I always do it with hesitation, never wanting to sound like I'm losing my mind. After he finally admitted what was going on in his life, I couldn't hold back anymore. I shared my own stories, most of which started when I was about 7 and lasted all the way through college. That was when we started really diving into the whole paranormal thing. Watching eerie videos, horror films, playing creepy games. It became something we bonded over, but I want to make it clear, it wasn't an everyday thing. Just something we did when we had nothing better to do. Fast forward a bit, and I remember one day, the conversation slowing to a crawl. It was early morning, quiet, a typical lazy day. He asked if I wanted to see a poster he'd bought from a convention a while ago. I said sure, and instead of walking through his room to show it to me, he flipped on his camera. The room was dark, but it didn't seem strange at first. The curtains were drawn, so I thought that was the cause. He said, "Let me get the light," and flipped a switch. No big deal, right? I turned my camera on too, planning to show him some plushies I'd bought from an anime shop in town. We both laughed at how nerdy we were. But then, the air shifted. Something about his face when he looked back into the camera, it was different. His usual smile was gone. It was replaced by an almost hollow expression, like he was seeing something I couldn't. He didn't speak at first. Just stared. I asked if everything was okay, thinking he was messing with me. Then he whispered, "It's here." My heart dropped. And the worst part? I had no idea what he meant. But I could feel it. That feeling you get when you know something's watching you but you can't see it. The light flickered, casting eerie shadows across his face, and for a moment, I wasn't sure if it was the room or if it was him that had changed. He didn't move, didn't even blink. Then, as if nothing had happened, he muttered, "Let's just move on." But I couldn't shake it. Whatever was there, it was real. And it was too close. It didn't seem strange at first. Just a normal video call, my friend showing off the second poster he'd bought. I was admiring the fine details, the sharp lines, the colors popping in the light. But then something caught my eye. Something wrong. In the glossy laminated surface of the poster, I saw a reflection. At first, I thought it was nothing. Laminated posters are reflective, after all. But as I stared closer, my blood ran cold. The face I saw staring back at me wasn't his. It wasn't my friend's face. I knew what he looked like, had seen him 1,000 times on video calls, had even gotten selfies from him at work. This was not him. I couldn't look away. My eyes were glued to that face in the reflection, frozen for what felt like a few seconds. And then I heard it, my name, being called over the call. "Hey, you there? E? Can you hear me?" I snapped out of it. My mouth went dry, and I quickly apologized, brushing it off like it was nothing. I had spaced out, I said. But I was lying. I could feel the cold sweat starting to form on the back of my neck. He didn't buy it. He called me out on it. "E, I saw your face," he said. "You looked terrified. Like you saw something you weren't supposed to see." He was right. The second I snapped out of it, I could feel it too. The shock, the fear still crawling up my spine. He told me he thought my camera had frozen, that I was just staring, frozen in fear. But I didn't feel like I was frozen. It felt like just a moment, only a few seconds tops. Yet somehow, I knew I hadn't been moving. Not even blinking. I wasn't aware of my expression until he mentioned it. I thought I looked neutral, calm, maybe a little distracted. I had to tell him. I couldn't keep it in anymore. I finally confessed what I saw. The face. It belonged to an old man. His skin was deathly pale, sagging like melted wax. His eyes were dark hollow, sunken into his skull like he hadn't seen daylight in years. I shuddered just thinking about it. I didn't know what it meant, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever it was still with me, watching me through that reflection. Solid black, empty eye sockets. That's all I saw when I looked at the reflection on the screen. No anger. No sadness. Just a blank, hollow expression staring back at me from the camera. I couldn't look away. It wasn't my friend's face. It was something else, something wrong. My friend had warned me before. He told me strange things happened when he was on the phone, when he'd talk to someone. People would ask if someone else was with him, if there was another voice in the room with him. And every time, he'd just lie and tell them it was the TV in the background. But it wasn't the TV. It was something else. For a while, strange things would happen when I talked to him, just like he said. One time, we were streaming movies together, and he stepped away to make some food. About 10 minutes passed, and I heard his headphones shift as he picked them up again. I thought he was coming back, so I asked if he was ready to start the movie. But there was no response. "Hello, Z," I said, waiting for him to come back on the line. But still nothing. I waited. A little longer. And then, a muffled voice. It wasn't Z. It sounded like someone was speaking underwater or through a pillow. I couldn't make out the words, but I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Z? Your mix messed up or something," I said, trying to get his attention. But the voice just stopped. The silence was suffocating. Another 5 minutes passed, and finally, my friend returned, as if nothing had happened. I never mentioned it. I just pushed it down, deep into the back of my mind. But it's still there, that voice, the memory of it. And I wonder if it was him who had come back or if something else had been waiting for him. And that is where it all ended. I never got answers. But I'll never forget what happened that day.